通常我哋食飽飯咧就係真係 heavy 啲㗎，係隻眼 heavy。但我哋今日會聽嘅兩個成功嘅個案咧，一個係美國嘅來源，一個係新加坡嘅來源，但係都係講緊一個好創新嘅商業模式，就係點樣將一啲以前唔係好多人肯做嘅工作係帶入去市場，亦都係將一啲低收入、低技術嘅婦女點樣經過一個好有策略嘅培訓，讓佢成為當家作主。其實 Karen 嘅公司最特別嘅地方就係佢每一個同事都係股東，呢個犀利係咪？佢哋一齊共享呢個收穫。I'm talking about Karen. You come from the Homecare Association, which is a very particular employment organization offering training to have the low-income, low-skill ladies learn about and also to share the benefit of the company. So let's invite Karen to share your wonderful journey. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Happy to be here today. It's very exciting, the work that you're doing here in Hong Kong to make this a smart aging city. I wish in the US we would do that as well. One of the elements that you've added to this is that when you're 45 or older, you're then considered a golden ager. I can tell you in the US that people who are 45 and older want to go backwards into the younger generation. So I think it's a very brilliant idea to think about making 45 and plus a part of the advocacy for aging. Wanted to tell you a little bit about Homecare Associates. We're based in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I've been president of Homecare since 1993. I've been president since 2002. The organization has been around since 1993, and we take care both of elderly folks and also people with disabilities. So probably half of the people that we care for are people with physical disabilities. So we started in 1993, and it was based on a model that was started in the South Bronx in New York City. The idea was that the people who started it were really social entrepreneurs, and what they wanted to do was to create jobs for low-income people. So they looked at the market, and what they found was that home care was a growing need, and they decided that they were going to form a worker co-op, which is a form of a business corporation in the United States, and start a home care business. Again, they chose home care because there was a growing need, but also because it's a job that obviously can't be imported, can't be exported. It's a hands-on job. And people have talked, I guess, about robots and so forth doing home care. How many of you would like to have a robot washing you? I don't think so, right? So there is room for technology, but I don't think it's going to take the place of home care workers. So Cooperative Home Care Associates, which is in the Bronx, currently has 2,000 employees, and they're the largest cooperative in the United States, I can proudly say. What the folks at PHI decided, and what the folks at CHA decided, rather, was that in order to sustain the model of home care the way they were doing it, they needed to do a little bit more. What they needed to do was really to advocate for the model, because it was such a non-traditional model. So they formed a nonprofit called PHI to both influence the government and also influence the health system that this was a viable and good model. What PHI decided to do was then get money to try and replicate the model. And so they raised money from a foundation in the United States and took that money and invested in models in both Philadelphia and in Boston. And they chose those simply because they were close to New York. So we started with a $250,000 capital investment and started with the mission of providing quality care and quality jobs. Now, PHI was really smart in the way they set up this corporation, because what they decided was they just didn't want to, give us the money and let us start the organization. They actually created two shareholders, a Class A, which would be the worker owners. Worker owners who worked there would end up getting dividends if the company was successful. And then for their contribution, they made themselves a Class B shareholder. And what that allowed them to do was have some control over the future of the company. So they don't receive any dividends, but they do have a seat on the board, and they are able to make sure that we stay on our mission. So for example, if we decided to sell the company, they probably wouldn't like that very much. And we work very closely with them. They do a lot of work around policies and practices, best policies and practices for long-term care workers. And they serve on our board, as I say, and I serve on their board as well. So there's a lot of cross-pollination. So let me talk a little bit about aging. I know that most of us don't want to think about needing assistance with living our daily lives. We hope to be productive and healthy forever. I know that for me, I have a shock this year. I'm turning 65, and I can't believe that actually is happening. I don't feel like it. And I can tell you that even though I'm in this field, I don't think that I'm ever going to need anybody to assist me with my activities of daily living. I certainly hope not, but it may happen one day. But I know that there are many seniors who can live independent lives, but there are many others who, with a little bit of assistance and a little bit of help, can also manage. And most of those people, at least I've never found anybody who wants to go live in a nursing home. Any of you want to live in a nursing home? I don't think so. So what we know is that most people are really are trying to stay at home. And so what we know is that we need people to take care of us. Now, in the old days, there were family members, right, who could take care of elderly people. That doesn't exist anymore. I don't know about here, but in the United States, we sometimes have children, but they have children, and then they have jobs, and they can't really afford to not do those jobs so they can take care of us. So we need to find another source, and those sources are paid caregivers. Now, in order to have those people do the job that we want them to do, and let's face it, it's a very intimate and hard job, and we want that person to be somebody who is like a family member, who will treat you as if they're your family member. But it doesn't come instantly. At Homecare Associates, and these are some of our caregivers with their consumers. You can see that it's a variety of different people here. At Homecare Associates, in our 23 years plus in the business, we have learned that the first question in hiring someone to do this job is whether or not you would want the person to take care of you or your loved one. We need to employ workers who can physically do the job, because it is a physical job. It involves lifting and bathing and cleaning and so forth. But they also have to have the communication skills, the soft skills, to be able to do the job. At Homecare Associates, we call this work heart work, not hard work. So the mission of our company is to provide quality care, and we feel like that starts with a quality job. But let me just talk about what quality care is, okay? So, here we go. Elements of a quality job. So first of all, it needs to be centered on the consumer. We refer to our patients as consumers because we see them as people who consume our service, not as people who are sick and need to be taken care of. And they can choose to take our services, or they can choose to hire another company to do the services. And in the United States, the business is extremely competitive. So we see the consumer as a driver of care. Just because you need assistance doesn't mean that you cannot direct that assistance, right? Just because you're old doesn't mean that you're deaf. Just because you can't use your hands doesn't mean that you're dumb. So we really take that into consideration. Secondly, the care needs to be respectful. We know that people have different preferences. We know that most people want to make their own choices. So for example, if you have a diabetic consumer who's not supposed to eat sugar, and you go in and you say, you can't eat that, Mrs. Jones, you're probably not going to be very successful in your experience with Mrs. Jones. But if you present an option to Mrs. Jones and say, maybe we can have some fruit today, Mrs. Jones, or maybe we can call your nurse and see if it's okay for you to have sweets today, you're more likely to have a good outcome in terms of the care of that consumer. Second, we need to, and we call that presenting options. Now, this is what we're gonna talk about this a little bit later, because this is one of our 4 Ps. And the first one is, as I said, was present options. We need to understand that there are cultural differences between people. We service people of all races, ethnic backgrounds, sexual preferences, religions, and some people have different practices, and we make sure that we train our aides so that they know that they can react to somebody who may not be exactly like they are. Third, the care needs to be professional, and what we mean by that is that the caregiver needs to be on time. She needs to not bring her problems to the consumer. Often people go into somebody's home and they start talking about their day and their problems. That's not a good thing. Third, it needs to be delivered by a consistent caregiver. The worst thing, if you're being taken care of, is that Monday you get one person, Tuesday another, and Wednesday another. So we want to make sure that you get the same caregiver every day. Finally, if changes need to be made, and they often do, that we let the consumer know. So in order to start with that quality care, you really have to start a quality job. You have to give a person a quality job. And what is a quality job? Well, first of all, it's one that pays decent wages, that it has benefits. Our company, we have health, dental, long-term disability, paid time off. We pay people overtime wages. We give them a TransPass. We offer them full-time employment, and we have a 401k or a retirement plan. And the final benefit that we offer is worker ownership, which I'll get to in a minute. Now, in our country, home care aides are not paid very well. There just isn't the reimbursement for them, and there isn't the professional respect, I guess. So that's another battle that we really have to fight, both with the government, but we also have to convince people that they want to do this job for us. And how do we do that? Well, we talk about all the benefits and wages we have, and we start with we let people know that by coming to work for us, they're going to get the training that they can then perhaps take to another job. And the way we structure the training is that we make sure that we start with high expectations of people. We don't let people in very easily into our training. It usually takes us 200 or 300 applicants to get a class of 20 people into a training. We make sure that people are really observed during training, and we can get a good sense during training. If you're sleeping during training, right, we're not going to let you continue the training, because if you're sleeping during training while one of our trainers is watching you, chances are that when you go to somebody's home, you're going to take a nice long nap. So that is not acceptable. If you're on your phone, for example, texting or answering the phone, that's unacceptable. So those are the kinds of things that we look for with training. The other thing we do is really looking for ways that aides can do more jobs. They can expand their scope of practice. So for example, our state really regulates what people can do. They can't help with wound care, for example. They can't dispense medication. They can't clean a colostomy bag. But something's happened in our state. Suddenly the state has decided that maybe these are tasks that an aide can do, because if an aide does it and not a nurse, it's going to save money. So increasing the scope both gives people more reason to stick with the job because they have a more professional role, but it also potentially can help healthcare costs because now you don't have to send a nurse to go into the home. And that's been really effective for us. The other piece of quality, and here you'll see people basically practicing with each other in class. We have a very hands-on training program where people practice on each other. So I'm going to skip that for a minute. So the other issue is really support and supervision. Again, it's a job where you go into somebody's home, you don't see anybody except your client every day, or maybe you see several clients, and there's nobody there to give you any feedback or talk to you or instruct you. So at Homecare, what we try and do is we build that in. We make sure that we are in touch with our aides on a regular basis. We make sure that they have some help in dealing with barriers before they even start employment. And we know that for low-income workers, the kinds of issues that they deal with from day one are childcare, housing, domestic violence. But if we can solve those issues before they get to the workplace, they can often do a much better job. So that's what we do. We take that extra time to do some case management. So I talked a little bit about our 4 Ps model, and let me go back to that for a minute. So the first, we talked about present options. So that's when somebody doesn't want to do what you want them to do, and in order to help you get them to do it, you present options. I'm sure those of you who have kids know what that is, right? The first one is pull back. So let's say I walk into your house and you start screaming at me, right? So what do? Do I engage with you and scream back? I hope not. What I do is I take a minute to gather myself and calm myself and then figure out how to respond. And we call that pull back. And I'm sure that everybody in this room has been in that situation of having a very quick reaction to somebody else. What we train people to do is pull back and then decide how you're going to respond, especially in a work situation. Finally, paraphrase is the third P, and what that is if you hear somebody saying something, they're not going to necessarily know that you hear them, but if you repeat it back to them, they'll understand that you heard it, and everybody wants to be heard, right? Everybody wants to know that you heard them. You may not agree with them, but at least you heard them, so that's paraphrase. And then finally, there's pass it on, and pass it on is very important in healthcare. That means that when you go into a consumer's home and you complete some duties, that you let the next person who's going to be there know what you did. If somebody looks kind of peaked one day, there may be something really awful going on with him, you need to pass it on. You need to call your supervisor or the nurse or somebody to let them know, hey, Mrs. Jones doesn't look so good today. There may be something going on. And people, this is how you save people's lives, right? And the home care aide is really the eyes and ears of the medical system. So they're there more than the doctor, certainly more than the doctor, but more than the nurse, more than anybody. So they know what's going on generally with consumers. So these are the 4 Ps. Oh, go past that. And the 4 Ps really are the core of our company. So not only do trainees get this in their orientation and training, we also use it as part of our management style. So we make sure that when we as supervisors do our disciplinary actions or do our evaluations, we use those communication tools, and then people get it. They understand because they've already heard it. One of the things that I joke about is that Tasha Cooper, who's here, who's our Chief Operating Officer, is such a master of coaching supervision that she has fired many people in her career, and often people thank her. They say, thank you so much for the opportunity, because by the time people get to the stage of being terminated or fired, they already know how they've messed up, and they understand that maybe this job isn't for them. And hopefully they have some information that they can take to their next job that will help them keep that job. So that's what we strive for, to make sure that people really understand what is expected and they own those expectations. We don't own them, you own those expectations. So as I said, the training program really instills that. And in order to do that, we deal with a lot of people who have probably low skill levels. So we do a lot of role playing, a lot of experiential learning. It's not a lot of lectured learning. And we find that that's extremely important in order to keep people engaged and active. There's constant feedback to participants, so they know exactly where they stand. So they know that if they're not doing well in training, they're either going to make it better or they're not going to be there anymore. And I think that's really important. So there are no surprises. People always know where they stand. So finally, I want to talk about worker ownership. And this is a really important part because in our company, people are eligible after 3 months to buy a share in the company. 1 share per worker, right? So if you are there for 3 months, you could buy a share in the company. The share costs $500. We loan you $465 of those $500, and then you pay the rest back over 3 years. But as soon as you become a worker owner, then you're entitled to a dividend in the company based on the hours that you work. So if you're a full-time employee and you work a certain number of hours and the company is successful and decides to give a dividend, everybody shares equally in that dividend. So as president of the company, I get the same dividend as aide gets. And the dividend is decided by the worker owners and the board members. The members of our company actually elect people to the board of directors. We have a 12-person board, 7 of whom are worker owners, and the rest of whom are experts from other fields. And those are the people who basically know about the financial state of the company. We meet with them quarterly to talk about what's going on with the company, and we make sure that they understand the financial position of the company. They decide then, if the company has a profit, how that profit is distributed. But the great thing about it is if we're not doing well, again, there are no surprises, and people understand. We let people know. We're transparent about what is going on with the company. Also, they are my boss. So if they hired me, I was very fortunate to be hired 15 years ago, but if they decide we don't think she's doing such a good job, they could fire me. We also have company meetings twice a year with all of the worker owners, again, to tell them what's going on with the company, be very transparent about the financial matters. I think that's really key to success for us. We have goals in terms of how much money of the reimbursement that we get should go back to worker owners. Generally, it's around 75%, which is really, again, we benchmark against the industry average, and it's extremely high. So, how do we know if we've been successful? Well, first of all, we've been profitable. We have revenues of about $7 million. We've grown over the last 15 years. I would say that we've doubled. We have clear policies. We know that we measure both job satisfaction and consumer satisfaction on a regular basis to see how we're doing as a company. We also measure success in the fact that over 50% of our workers were formerly on public assistance. For some of them, this is their first job, and they are successful for the first time in their lives, and we're very proud of that. We also look at some of the statistics. 47% of our workforce has been employed more than 2 years with us. 18 of our home health aides have been employed more than 10 years. And in our office staff, people have been there a long time. And most of the people who work in the office started out as home health aides, and they've been promoted from within. And again, that's one of my favorite things about the company. If somebody wants to improve themselves and go back to school, or even not go back to school, but try another job, we're very open to that. So finally, what I'd say is that we believe that we've been a model of social innovation and social business from the beginning. We just didn't know it, okay? Right now, that's more in fashion. It's more in fashion for business to say, we want to give something back to the community. But I can proudly say that that was our mission from the beginning, and we are what is called a B corporation. I don't know how many people are familiar with it, but it's a designation that basically says that in addition to the bottom line, you're concerned about workers, your impact on the community, your impact on the world. And we were designated a B corporation in 2013, and we're actually one of the first B corporations in Pennsylvania. So we're very, very proud of that as well. So I want to thank you so much. It's been such an exciting thing for me to be here in Hong Kong for the first time. I'm as far away from home as I've ever been, and it's been just terrific. So I thank you for letting me share my story.
Yeah, thank you, Karen. 多謝晒 Karen。大家一路聽咧，其實有3個重點。佢間公司就係員工係分享嘅成果，員工係公司嘅股東，而咧佢都 invest 好多喺員工培訓，提升佢嘅技能。好，咁我哋就交俾另外一個 speaker。We have another speaker. Yo is from Singapore, and actually her company is called Active Global, of which should be founded 5 years ago. And then Yo is the founder and also the CEO. Maybe I hand over the time to you. Yo.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. So I was asked to talk about business innovation, which is obviously a very challenging topic. So I'm going just to share a few thoughts about how I think about business innovation as an entrepreneur, as a home care entrepreneur, as Active Global. So it's not a lecture, it's just some, sharing some thoughts about how we do it. I used to be a management consultant before, and they taught us to think big. So when I started a company, I was like, okay, I should think big. So what do I want to do? I want to achieve, I want to help people age with dignity at home and so on. But you know what? Thinking big doesn't really help me to get things done, and doesn't really tell me how to make a difference and how to, really how to make things done, to get things done. So after thinking big, I really quickly realized that thinking small is going to be the practical way to have an impact for my company. And what I mean by thinking small, at the end of the day, it's quite easy to think small, because when you start a company, there are so many people who tell you why it's not going to work, and why home care is never going to work in Asia. So I just put together the top 5 reasons why home care is never going to work into Asia, according to what people told me, because they were very strong sources of inspiration in terms of making it work for my company, for Active Global. So this is my top 5. First one, filial duty. First 2, domestic helpers. Number 3, nobody wants to care for the elderly. It's not a job that people want to do, so you're not going to be able to find anybody to do this job. Number 4, you're a private company. Private companies can't be trusted to do social work. And number 5, which is my favorite, you're never going to make money. So how do we address this, and how do we turn these objections into sustainable impact for my clients, sustainable impact for my workers, and a successful company? Well, let's start one by one. Filial duty. So there is this strong sentiment in Asia that sons and daughters, and more often daughters actually, are probably the best people to care for the elderly, and somehow we get pressured into caring for our own elderly, because this has to be the best solution. Actually, I really have challenged that, and I continue challenging it. Because if you look at the situation, for instance, of dementia patients, and this lady here on the screen is a dementia patient with her professional caregiver. Well, this lady, as cute and happy as she looks, she can't remember her own name. She can't remember the name of her children. So you can imagine if you are the daughter, and every day you have to care for your mother, but your mother doesn't even remember who you are and your name, how strained the care is going to be, and how heavy the duty of care is going to be on the shoulder of the daughter. On the other hand, my caregiver here, she's a professional. What she focuses on is the here and now. How do I today improve the quality of life of my patient? this patient, what she loves doing is going out for ice cream every day and having a walk in the park. And so we are going to make sure that this happens. Whether she remembers her name is irrelevant. She likes having ice cream. She loves, there is this TV show, this gangster TV show that she loves watching every day at 1 p.m. We're going to make sure that she gets to watch it every day. And then they are commenting, between the caregiver and the patient, they are commenting about, who's the gangster and so on. But they're having fun, they're having a good time. That is what is important. And at the end of the day, challenging this idea of filial duty, that it's, filial duty can be exercised not just in being the caregiver, but also it can be exercised in providing the best care. It could be getting a professional caregiver to provide the best care to your parent, is something that is worth thinking about. But to do that, there's a lot of education on my client side, which are the sons and daughters of the elderly, but also on the caregiver side. So especially with dementia, we spend a lot of time training our caregivers about what it takes to improve the quality of life of a dementia patient, because it's really, really very specific. Okay, the second reason why professional home care is never going to work in Asia, so as I told you, is that, everybody has a domestic helper in Asia, so nobody really needs skilled care because, everybody has a helper, right? Well, then why are there so many nursing homes and why are the nursing homes full? Actually, again, it's about education and making people aware that for certain conditions that used to be only cared for in a nursing home, now skilled care is available at home. So this gentleman is from the Tuen Mun Hospital, and he was actually featured on TV here in Hong Kong. He had an accident in his house, and unfortunately, at the age of 55, he became very severely disabled with a tracheostomy. So the hospital staff told him, well, no matter what, the rest of your life you are going to spend in a nursing home. And you can imagine, he is 55 years old, so it could be another 30 years to live in a nursing home. So that was obviously very depressing for him and his family. And we came in and were able to provide a foreign trained nurse who is able to, give the full care, including the tracheostomy care. And I'm very proud to say now this gentleman is back to a dignified life. One of the key things that was very important to him, he went to vote for the last election. So he has his life back as much as possible. And this is very important. So again, this is about thinking about how we educate people to, and it's both on the hospital side and the family side, that options are there, but we need to think differently about them. Okay, the third one, which is I think probably the most important one in the elder care industry, and I think Karen has made some very important points about that, is nobody wants to do the job, nobody wants to be a caregiver. So how do we attract people to this career? And attract people and retain people, because that's what, it takes a lot of experience and days on the job to really make a good caregiver. So building up on what Karen shared before, we have from day one started a very ethical recruiting process. And so we built this ethical recruiting on the fact that whoever we recruit from overseas, so the overseas nurses that we are recruiting don't have to pay to get a job. It sounds obvious to many people that not to pay to get a job, but when you are talking about overseas recruiting, unfortunately, we are probably the only ones not making people pay to get a job in Hong Kong or Singapore. So it's very important, and we don't just do this because we are nice people. It also makes sense. We attract a better caliber of healthcare workers because we have this policy in place. And the other thing is with regards to our local caregivers, we have 200 of them in Hong Kong. We have many locals as well in Singapore. We also make sure that we enable them to train up, to have many career opportunities, whether with Active Global or beyond Active Global. We don't put them in prison when they work with us, so that's very important. Okay. I think one very important point that I was told, for the past 4 years that I've been running Active Global is that at the end of the day, private companies can't be trusted to carry out social work. So that's going to be a problem for the development of Active Global. Well, actually, we are now providing subsidized care both under Singapore Ministry of Health and Shanghai Social Security Bureau. And so they must be trusting us to provide professional home care. The key to making that happen was aligned vision, high quality, of course, but also a sense that convincing them that if they work with us, we are going to raise the standard for the whole industry. Just one very small example, but when we came in to start providing subsidized home care in Singapore, the landscape was, before us, it was only NGOs providing the care. And since we came in, we are now able to provide the hospitals with a live capacity management tool, meaning when a hospital can go online and check live whether we have a caregiver who can help them discharge their patient tomorrow morning or not. That was not available in the previous landscape. And so this is, again, thinking small about how to help the hospitals discharge patients faster. Thanks to this type of small innovation, we are helping the hospitals and we're also helping the industry. Finally, private companies can't make money doing social work. I disagree. We can, and we are, and we will. And the key to that is to think about, from day one, about what is the model. And for us, the model has been a very low cost base, a very affordable price point for the care. So, for instance, the gentleman you saw from the Moon Hospital, the Tuen Mun Hospital, his care bill per month is less than 7,000 Hong Kong dollars, so making it affordable. So, okay, low cost, affordable means many clients, means ultimately covering our costs and making a profit. So I think it's possible, and actually it works for us. We have over 800 caregivers right now across our 3 markets, so Shanghai, Hong Kong, and Singapore. And out of these, 300 are locals and 500 are overseas skilled caregivers. And in conclusion, I like this quote, so I'll leave you to think about it, but I think business innovation in home care starts with thinking small, and yes, the small problems of every day help really in actually making an impact both for our clients, their families, and our workers. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Yo. I think you all understood that 2 organizations, 2 companies, although they are companies, but I think they are really doing good things, just like a B Corp or impactful entrepreneurs. So I think maybe you can find a commonality. One is they carry very much about qualities. Secondly, they are serving not only the needed patient or elders, but also responding to the need of the lower level working ladies who can really find their job, earn their income. Thirdly, they really count on a lot of heavy investment on training so that their quality can be assured. Maybe I want to ask one question. At your development, what are the most challenging things? How about, is there any money issue or capital issue that you face? Because at the very beginning, you don't have money. How can you start with your first capital?
Well, we were fortunate in that we got a grant to start, but it does take some time, and you need in the home care business, because the reimbursement is low, to have enough volume. Okay. So you need to be able to have enough hours of care. So that's right. You probably the biggest challenge is to get people who are willing to stick with you and work hard. Yep. And in our case, there were probably 3 or 4 or 5 people who did every job in the company and were willing to really be entrepreneurial. Multi-level,
and
still in our company, if something needs to be done, we just started a new project where people were working in, were transitioning from nursing homes. Right. some of our staff
Yep.
who work in the office went and worked as home health aides because we had a shortage.
Great. So, Yo?
To build on what Karen said, multitasking is definitely a key success factor in any entrepreneurial venture.
Yep.
And with regards to capital, for us, we started with the founder's savings, so I guess my money. And very luckily, we found angel investors and then social investors such as Wing 43, with Felix is there in the room, who are supporting us. But clearly, the idea for the company is to become 100% self-sustainable.
Okay, one last question. As two companies have very particular social mission, where you found this, social mission? What you identify the change that you want to make from the society? Your boss or yourself? How you come with this great idea of, like in Homecare Associate, you share the dividend. The staff are the owner. While for you are talking about addressing the expertise, care need of the people. Can you share how you come with this idea?
Well, I think it really depends on the kind of person you are and what you believe in. And if you, in every business, you can make money and keep all the money for yourself. And there are many people in the home care business who do it. Or you can say, I can make money, but so can my coworkers. Why not share?
So you look for sustainability.
Yeah, sustainability, and I think more and more business owners are saying it's not just about making money.
Good.
It's about, at the end of the day, feeling like you changed the world and that you've done something good for people. And for me, that's what motivates me to do what I do.
That's good. How about you?
For me, what drives me is the usefulness of what I do. So I used to work in a corporate life before. I also was a consultant before. Now I'm an entrepreneur, but whatever, every day what drives me is basically, did I have an impact? Am I spending my time in a meaningful way that is actually useful? And I think this elder care sector is the perfect sector for me because the usefulness is just obvious, but both to our patients, their families, but also to our workers. We create good opportunities for them.
Great. So I think the founders are very determined about the model and also the impact that we want to change for the society. So to me, I hope that in some days later, we will not need to have the classification of social entrepreneur or entrepreneur. If all entrepreneurs are all for the society, that's all, right? Okay, thank you very much for the two
Thank you.
outstanding speakers. Thank you very much. Karen, thank you.
好多謝晒正話咁